Wonderful. If you remember Miss Archer, I'm going to read a little bit. In the last half of 1915, Miss Myrtle Marion Archer became Superintendent of Nurses at a time when the school was called still the training school. She was a graduate of the old Memphis City Hospital, later to become the present, or then, John Gaston Hospital. She first was appointed as a floor supervisor of Baptist Memorial Hospital, and after a short period of private duty nursing experience, she was assistant to Ms. Gorman, stepping into the top position from there. With the exception of 18 months of overseas duty during World War I, as the chief nurse of a Memphis unit of nurses, Ms. Archer directed both the school and the hospital nursing service until her retirement in June of 1949. About 2 months ago, we were contacted by some family members of Ms. Archer who had a very special gift that they wanted the college to have as part of our history, and I think the Centennial is a wonderful time to acknowledge that. And I have here Mr. Alan Brown, or Al as he asked me to call him, who's her grandnephew. He's going to come forward and tell you a little bit about the gift that they're giving the college. Mr. Al, Mr. Brown, and Hope.
Thank you and good afternoon. I hope you remember Hope. Hope Piercy, my little cousin. She's dressed in a replica of a uniform that our Aunt Myrtle would have worn in World War I. Anyway, I'm here with my family to honor two people. First is the late Judy Chapman Jones, who was the wife of my cousin, Charlie Jones. Judy worked at Baptist Memorial Hospital, and she passed away in 2012. And the second person, of course, is Myrtle Marion Archer. As you heard, in 1915, she became the Superintendent of Nurses at Baptist Memorial. She was my great aunt, and the great aunt of my cousin Charles Jones, and my sister Wendy Brown Powers. Before I start talking about Aunt Bertie, as we used to call her, I'd like to introduce the other members of our family who are here today. And I'd like to have them stand. They're back in the back. My cousin Charlie Jones, my sister Wendy Brown Powers, Charles's daughter Sherry Jones Piercy and her family, husband Tim, Riley, Emma, Hudson, and up here is Hope. Finally, the person who did an awful lot of work on this gift, my wife Deborah Brown. We're here today to honor not only the memory of Myrtle Marion Archer, but to present to the Baptist Memorial Hospital a transcribed copy of the diary that she kept while she served as an American Red Cross nurse in France during World War I. It presents a fascinating look, not only how the war progressed, but how it affected not only the soldiers who fought it, but the men and women who took care of them in the Red Cross hospitals across France. Here now, I'd like to give you an idea of what they endured by reading a few selections from our Aunt Myrtle's diary. On January 1st, 1918, Myrtle Marion Archer was waiting at Ellis Island, New York, to make a journey across the Atlantic to war-torn France. She begins by saying, "Here we have been since November 13th, awaiting orders to sail to some port in France. Recently, we have been told that the time won't be long until we go. Today has been so cold. We've had to stay in bed part of the time just to keep warm. There's plenty of ice on the bay. No mail today has made the day so long. I have a slight case of homesickness. How cold it is here. On January 9th, Myrtle and a contingent of nurses from Memphis that was known as Unit P left Ellis Island aboard the RMS Carmania, a former ocean liner that had been transformed into a troop ship. Crossing the Atlantic took 12 days, and the anticipation was immense. The Carmania landed in Liverpool on January 22nd, and Myrtle and the other nurses spent a week in London. Then it was on to France, first to Bologna, which Myrtle described as the most depressing place I have ever seen. But this was only the beginning. Myrtle and her nurses finally reached their destination on February 3rd, 1918 at American Base Hospital number 15 in Chaux-Montmartre, located on the hills above the Marne River in northeastern France, near the Swiss border. Now you know I can't speak French either. It was about 6 hours from Paris. But for the next year, Myrtle would experience a series of emotional ups and downs. In reading her diary, it sometimes reminded me of the old television series MASH, where 1 minute the nurses and doctors are partying, and in the next, hundreds of casualties would arrive, and immediate attention would be needed, or just a small reminder of home. For example, on February 14th, she writes, St. Valentine's Day, but you'd never know it. Not a comic or a sentimental one. About twice a month, we have a dance, which seems out of keeping with the situation. In some instances, we do not even have enough linen to go around, and it's difficult to get a suitable diet for the sickest patients. Still, the refreshments at these affairs are quite elaborate. A funny world, I think. By March, she had settled into a routine that included giving her patients little treats. And she writes, Miss Timlin and I walked to Carol and gave the boys some cigarettes, which we got from the English canteen woman. I guess back in those days, they weren't so concerned about the harmful effects of tobacco. But as the month wore on and the partying lessened, it was when the Germans began their heavy bombing. She says, the night raids are awful. They keep us on the hop. All the best of the night, and we must get up early. Today, we are happy to get a nap after dinner, but tonight finds us in the cellar again. I shall always remember these nights in the cellar and kitchen with guns booming overhead and being so sleepy. I don't care an awful lot if the guns do strike. The constant cannon fire and the wounded came in fast and furious. However, this contrasted with the beauty of her surroundings. As winter turned to spring, she writes, we went for a walk, which led us down and into the steepest hills I ever saw. We crossed a little stream called the Swiss River twice and came to a hunting lodge of Louis XIV with the most wonderful walks, all enclosed by 2 stone walls, which we scrambled over. We passed through a field of wildflowers and finally came to the top of the hill and watched the sunset at 8 p.m. We lay down in the grass and rested. I gathered cornflowers, poppies, daisies, and some other strange flowers. But the sameness took its toll also. Close quarters Seeing and dealing with the same people every day and the conditions themselves made life unbearable. The casualties also brought home the horror of war. Over the next several months, she chronicled her everyday life. "I do not like being in a ward with a crowd," she writes. "To me, it is the worst feature of being over here. The wrangles and discussions make me realize I am a set old maid without a sense of humor that I once thought I had. Today is the warmest day, and the flies are horrible. We have no screens, so I bought some white crinoline and tacked it over my windows, which helps some. When we see the flies crowding over soiled dressings and garbage, and then on our food. A lot of the unit boys are sick, and no doubt the flies are the cause of it all. Today we received 350 of the badly wounded, the worst I've ever seen. Some have as many as 8 wounds. We have men without arms, some minus legs. One died on the train coming here, and one is dying now. Just a boy with his leg horribly mutilated by a bursting shrapnel shell. It is sickening to walk through a ward and see the pale faces and awful wounds. Perfect specimens, now human wrecks, and death close by. We were told the situation is serious at the front. The spring turned to summer, the spring and summer turned to fall, and the weather grew colder. Still, Myrtle wondered when she would ever see home again. October 22nd was her 32nd birthday, and she writes, "It has rained all day. We evacuated 500 patients and got in a few severely wounded. Tonight, the patients who could hardly walk were standing in a long line in the rain. The stretcher cases were carried off without supper, but as they were put on a hospital train, I hope they were fed." There was a military funeral this early a.m. Major Scott, who suicided. All day, Chopin's funeral march has sounded in my ears. Today is my birthday. I hope I shan't see another in France. As we all know, the armistice ended the war and was signed on November 11th at 11 o'clock on 1918. But because she was working in a hospital, Myrtle was not sure when she would be able to go home. By January 1st, she writes, "A great damn day. Not a thing happening. Not even raining yet. There are wild discussions of whether we go or we stay. Part are wild to go, but about 6 are wild to stay. The crowd who desire to remain have no patience with the other side and vice versa. After all, it perhaps won't be so much longer if we should stay for 6 months. I am glad we came, but I'm ready to go. The country in summer weather, I do not mind. The winter is dreadful, along with the living conditions and poor food. But I suppose it will not be optional, so we can only make the best of it." 9 days later, on January 10th, there was still wild speculation. She writes, "Rumor is wild now, and we are still hanging in the balance. No one can tell whether Unit P goes or stays." Well, American Base Hospital number 15 and thus Unit P ceased operation on January 15, 1919. Myrtle and other nurses of Unit P sailed for home in mid-February on the RMS Olympic, the sister ship to the Titanic. Once back in Memphis, Myrtle resumed her duties as Superintendent of Nurses at Baptist Memorial. Certainly a much wiser and most probably a changed woman. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to present a copy of this transcribed diary along with a compact disc of this diary and some other information about Myrtle Archer to the school. Betty? Thank you. Just the belief of our family that this accounting of her experience during World War I, written in her own words, will be one that the Baptist Memorial and its alumni can be proud of. Thank you for inviting us, and thank you for your time.
I don't know a better way to end our program today. Whether you're from the class of 1967, who celebrated 45 years. Where are you guys? Over here. There you are right there, sitting next to the family. Whether you helping diagnose someone that's worried about whether they have an illness and your x-ray that you took shows they don't. Whether you're doing a sonography for a mother that sees her child for the first time on film. Whether you're ministering to someone who's transitioning from this world to the next. Welcoming a baby into our world. Helping someone's grandmother or grandfather, son or daughter. If I could bottle the years of service represented in this room, it would be an awesome thing. It is such an honor to be among you today and to celebrate 100 years of tremendous service, and not just in this country, but like Al shared with us, literally across the globe. And I just thank all of you. Happy 100th birthday. And please take time for fellowship and enjoying each other. We thank you for your presence. We covet your prayers as we prepare the next generation. Those of you that were generous with our 1-100 campaign, thank you. We will be good stewards of your generosity. And with that, just thank you for coming. Oh, before you go, I'm sorry. Baby's giving me the eye. I forgot something.